This is not financial advice. I'm recording my thoughts about LVMH. LVMH is Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy. In this video, I'm going to talk about the LVMH stock and evaluate whether it is investable at the current price. First, we will talk about the stock price. Then we're going to talk about the business model. We'll move on to the financials. And finally, we'll look into the stock's evaluation and its price prediction in 2027 to make our final determination. Firstly, the stock price. LVMH trades under multiple tickers. If you are in the United States, you are probably familiar with a couple of these, LVMUY and LVMHF. As you can see on the screen, LVMH has about $171 price tag, whereas LVMHF has $856. And when you look into the orange arrows that shows the market cap is exactly same, 428 billion US dollars. The difference is that LVMUY is actually 1/5 of LVMHF. Therefore, the outstanding shares, if you buy LVMUY, would be about 2.5 billion. And if you buy LVMHF, it would be about 0.5 billion. LVMUY is more affordable for people who want to own this stock. Since it's low price, there is more liquidity, and this stock would be more liquid. In other words, people can trade their options and the stock price very easily, whereas LVMHF is hard to trade and hard to have the option because the price is at $856, right? So in short, if you buy 5 shares of LVMUY, that is equivalent to 1 share of LVMHF. Other than that, there's no difference. The dividend is about 1.5% for both of them. In the second part, we'll move on to LVMH's business model. As you can see on the screen, LVMH has multiple revenue segments. There is fashion and leather goods, wines and spirits, perfumes and cosmetics. They have other activities. There is selective retailing, and there is watches and jewelry. As you can see on the screen, we see Sephora, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Kenzo, Dom Perignon, Christian Dior. There's BVL Gari, Tag Heuer, Hublot. So we can conclude that this company has incredible moat. They just cannot go bankrupt. There is luxury industry, and since majority of the good brands are owned by LVMH, this company will be solid, right? And let's look at how this industry is. The luxury goods market is supposed to be worth about $443 billion by 2028. And that represents a compounded annual growth rate of about 6.2% year after year. So even if LVMH doesn't do anything, they can grow their business by about 6.2%. Let's look at LVMH's growth prospects. The sector is growing at 6%, and 6% is slow. So LVMH has to do something more to grow in the double digits, or at least grow much faster than the 6%. And they cannot just go on and make 100 million Louis Vuitton bags, right? Because that is going to dilute the luxury brand. So what they are doing instead is to buy another luxury brand. So the trick here for LVMH is that they have to acquire a brand for a good price and get more value from it after they acquire it. So that is a big challenge. So far they have been successful, but we have to see what other luxury brands are left for LVMH to acquire. Now let's move on to LVMH's financials. In 2022, they made about 79 billion euros of revenue, and I always wondered what kind of margins do these guys get, because usually retail is a very low margin business, but Louis Vuitton has gross margins in the order of about 70%, and the net income is actually in the high teens percentage. And I was actually pleasantly surprised that they could get this sort of margin with retail goods, right? And as expected, even though the gross margin is high, their operating expenses are also high. These kind of brands, they have to spend a lot of money on marketing and advertisements, right? And one thing that you can look at is when you look into the green box, it shows the outstanding shares. They stayed at 2.5 billion since 2019. So it seems like LVMH is not interested in diluting the shareholders. So that is a good point. But I had a question about how LVMH is actually getting money to buy these additional luxury brands. The answer to that is, one, they are having a lot of net income. Like for example, in 2022, they made about $14 billion of net income, which they can use to purchase, right? But that may not be enough. It seems like they have a lot of debt. They're taking a lot of debt to actually pay for these luxury companies to acquire them and then try to make money out of them. So when I looked into their debt statement, total long-term liabilities are about $37 billion. And the current debt is about $12 billion. And the cash and cash equivalents are only $10 billion. And total current assets are $39 billion. And that includes $20 billion of inventory. So now let's look at evaluation of LVMH in 2027. In other words, we're going to predict its price in 2027. And that gives us an idea to buy the stock at the current price or not. I'm going to show the evaluation for both tickers, LVMUY as well as LVMHF. In 2022, they made about 79 billion euros, right? But 1 euro converts to 1.06 US dollars. So I converted the numbers into US dollars here. In 2022, it comes down to $83.7 billion of revenue for LVMH. And for the estimated growth, as I said before, the industry is growing at 6% year on year. And I'm assuming that LVMH will make some clever acquisitions of other luxury brands and try to get this double-digit growth. And a lot of analysts do not think this is going to happen, but I'm optimistic. I'm going to put 10% estimated growth rate for this company year on year, with which this company would make about $135 billion of revenue in 2027. With reference to net profit margin, this company is already making net profit margin in the high teens. So I'm assuming 20%. I don't think that's unreasonable. So with 20% net profit margin, this company can make about $27 billion of net income in 2027. And for a company that's growing at 10% year on year and have a net profit margin of 20%, I can assign a multiple of about 17.5. But since LVMH is unrivaled and they have incredible moat, I can pay 22.5 multiple for this company, with which this company would be worth about $607 billion in 2027. For the number of outstanding shares, as I said before, they are not interested in diluting the shareholders, which is good. So I'm going to keep the same share count for the next 5 years. And that I think is optimistic, but I'm just going to keep it that way. So with a market cap of $607 billion and number of shares of 2.5 billion, this company would be worth about $241 in 2027. But currently the stock price is at $171, right? So that's only about 40% gain in 5 years. And we do know they pay about 1.5% of dividend year on year. So even if you add that, we will probably get to about 50% gain in 5 years. I can get that kind of gain from SPY or VOO, right? But let's move on to LVMHF evaluation. I have the same assumptions over here for LVMHF as well. The only thing that I changed is the number of shares. They are 0.5 billion, with which this company would be worth about $1,204 in 2027. But the reference price is $856 because that is what LVMHF is worth at this point. So that still gets to 41% gain in 5 years. Even if you include the dividend, that'd be about 50%. One last thought before I say whether I buy this stock at this price or not. You can say that currently the euro is not so strong, which is why we have that 1.06 USD conversion rate. But what if euro gets strengthened in future and get to probably 1.2 USD? The issue with that is, yes, the revenue would increase and market cap would increase by a factor of 1.2, but the growth rate would decelerate. Growth rate would not be 10% at that stage, because if the euro is strong, then countries outside of the European Union would feel that pressure. Like for example, China has a lot of these buyers. US has a lot of LVMH's customers, and they will feel the increase in price, and that's going to affect their decision to buy the luxury good or not. So I feel this evaluation is fair, and I'm going to not buy the stock at this price because I do not want just 50% and invest in an individual stock. So I will wait for the stock to fall to at least in the 150 range. I'm talking about LVMUY, to even think about investing in this stock, because that gets me about 60 to 70% return, which will beat the index at least. So these are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. If you are buying LVMH at the current price, I want to know your assumptions. What is the growth rate? What is the net income margin? And what is the multiple that you are assigning? And what kind of return are you looking at? So I would be interested to know your opinions. So please let me know in the comments. Thank you.